"Your sister is moving in on Saturday and you will pay for half of her luxuries," my parents said. They arrived with a moving truck, but when the door opened, it was not me. It was a man with a contract that humiliated them in front of everyone. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel, click on the subscription button and activate the little bell so you do not miss any of our stories. Your support means everything to us. If you find this story interesting, leave it a like. I would also love to know what city you are from. Leave us the name of your city in the comments. Now we begin with the story. My name is Elena Hammond. I am 32 years old and I am an architect. I live in an apartment on the 6th floor of a building in downtown Austin, here in Texas. It is my sanctuary, a space where the morning light filters through the enormous picture windows and bathes my blueprints and my models in white. Every corner, every piece of furniture, every book on the shelf, I earned through my own hard work. It took me almost 7 years of double shifts, instant soup dinners, and nights when exhaustion overcame me at the drawing table. Nobody helped me. It was a solitary path, paved with discipline and caffeine, and yet, in a single sentence, everything I had built with so much effort was about to collapse, like a glass of red wine spilled on an immaculate tablecloth. The Hammond family dinners were a ritual as predictable as a Swiss watch, the first Sunday of every month in a cream-colored, 2-story house in the Westlake Hills area, where my parents, Richard and Laura, have lived for 35 years. I arrived 10 minutes late on purpose. It was my small and silent act of resistance, a mute protest that shouted to the universe that I was no longer the obedient daughter who nodded at everything. My father, Richard, opened the door. His hug was brief and formal, a formality. My mother, Laura, was in the kitchen, moving with that frenetic and controlled energy that characterized her, supervising her famous roast. And my younger sister, Sophia, 26 years old, was already sunk into the living room sofa, her gaze lost in her phone, as if the rest of the world did not exist. Sophia is beautiful, charismatic, and always arrives at family events with a new crisis under her arm. This week's crisis. Her heart was broken by a rich fiancé who had left her after discovering that his credit card had an unauthorized twin. "Elena, sit down. I have just reheated the roast," my mother said without even looking at me. I nodded and entered the dining room. The fresh tablecloth, the perfectly aligned glasses, everything seemed like a set, a stage play. I had a premonition that the script for that night was already written and I, of course, did not have a single line. We had been eating for about 20 minutes when my father set his cutlery aside and cleared his throat, the unmistakable family signal that an announcement was about to arrive, and it was rarely something I wanted to hear. "Sophia needs a stable place to stay for a while," he began, in the same tone he used to read stock market reports. "We have talked it over and have decided that she will move into your apartment." I almost stuck the fork in my hand. I set my glass down on the table very slowly. "Excuse me, to my apartment?" "Yes," my mother added, pouring more wine for my father. "You have 2 bedrooms and you are always traveling for work. That office of yours is a waste of space." "And it did not occur to anyone to ask me?" I said, trying to maintain an even tone, although I felt my throat beginning to burn. Sophia looked up from her plate with a smug little smile. "I only need a few months, Elena. Just until I get my life in order. My parents' house is very small and your apartment is perfect. It makes all the sense in the world." She said it as if she were presenting a campaign strategy, not invading someone's personal life. Then I laughed. A dry, bitter laugh erupted from my throat without me being able to stop it. If I could have seen my reflection, I think my face would have looked cracked like old porcelain. My family's reaction was one of pure bewilderment, followed by palpable offense. "My office is not for rent," I said, with no trace of humor left in my voice, and I do not remember agreeing to any of this. My father sighed, a long, tired sigh of someone dealing with a problematic employee. My mother opened her planner. "We already bought some very expensive furniture for her room and hired a luxury moving company for Saturday. Since you will also enjoy the furniture, we expect you to pay for half. It is 15 suitcases and 8 boxes. She needs her things to be comfortable." I felt as if I were watching a movie for which I did not audition. Everything was already decided, rehearsed, and staged, except that the protagonist, the owner of the damn apartment, had not even been asked. I dropped my cutlery on the plate, making a sharp noise. "I do not agree with this, Elena," my father said, and his voice dropped an octave, becoming dangerous. "This is family, and family helps each other." "Oh, really?" I replied, feeling a damn break inside me. "Then why does Sophia not sleep in your living room or in Aunt Carol's basement? Or why does she not run her own place, like I did 10 years ago when you told me it was time to grow up and be independent?" The silence that followed was suffocating. Richard, my father, glared at me. His face hardened, and he slammed the table with the palm of his hand, making the glasses clink. "As long as you bear the Hammond name, you will show a minimum of respect," he shouted, his face red with anger. I stood up, pushing my chair back. I looked him straight in the eye, then at my mother and my sister. "My respect is earned, not imposed, and my apartment is not a charity warehouse. Excuse me." I walked out of there without looking back, leaving a thunderous silence and 3 faces full of indignation. The war had been declared. I drove through the night back to my sanctuary in Austin. The echo of my father's blow on the table still resonated in my ears. The adrenaline from the confrontation was beginning to fade, giving way to a dull, familiar pain, the pain of old wounds that never quite close. Every red light was a pause to relive an entire life of being the reliable one, the invisible daughter who never caused trouble, and, therefore, did not deserve consideration. A sharp memory assailed me. I was 16 years old and had been accepted into a prestigious summer architecture camp in New York City. It was my dream. But a week before, my grandmother fell ill and my mother informed me, she did not ask me, that I would stay to take care of her. "And the camp?" I asked in a thin voice. "Family comes first, Elena," she declared. That same summer, my older brother, Jason, went on a 2-month trip through Europe to find himself, fully funded by my parents. Nobody told him that family was first. Another red light. Another memory. University. I obtained a full scholarship to UT Austin. I cried with joy in the library bathroom when I received the letter, but the scholarship did not cover everything. I worked as a waitress at night and on weekends to pay for my materials, my transportation, and my food. Meanwhile, my parents paid without question the tuition for the 3 different degrees that Sophia started and abandoned because she did not feel the passion. And not to mention Jason's multiple failed ventures, a bottomless pit where my father's money disappeared under the label of seed capital. And then, the most bitter memory. 3 years ago, I had pneumonia that sent me to the hospital for 2 nights. I called my mother to let her know, my voice weak with fever. Her response was flat, distant. "Oh, what a nuisance. Well, drink a lot of soup. I am busy helping your sister. She just broke up with that boyfriend and is devastated." She hung up. Nobody visited me. Nobody asked if I needed anything. My illness was an inconvenience. Sophia's emotional crisis was a tragedy that required the full family's attention. The favoritism in my family was not something that was shouted. It was an undercurrent, a constant dampness that weakened the foundations. Jason was the visionary, Sophia the delicate jewel that had to be protected, and I was the functional rock, the load-bearing beam that everyone took for granted. I was expected to bear the weight without complaining. I arrived at my building and the security guard greeted me with a smile. I went up in the elevator and opened the door to my apartment. The silence and order received me like a hug. I turned on the lights and walked through the space that was mine. Only mine. I felt a cold, clear fury, a determination I had never experienced before. It was no longer sadness. It was not resignation. It was the calm before the battle. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and the first thing I did was call my best friend, Claire. She is a lawyer, a brilliant woman as direct as an arrow. "Claire," I said as soon as she answered, my voice sounding strangely serene, "I need you to help me build a reinforced concrete wall." "It is over." I told her everything. The dinner, the announcement, the slam on the table. Claire listened without interrupting, only letting out a "what bastards" from time to time. "First things first," she said at the end, "check your condominium's bylaws. Look for the guest clause and," Elena paused, "this is not going to be pretty. Your father does not know how to lose. You must anticipate his moves. I need you to prepare for the worst." I hung up the phone and felt different. The architect in me had taken control. I was no longer reacting to an attack. I was designing a defense. I opened my files and started looking for the bylaws. Then I gathered the deeds to my apartment, my bank statements for the last 5 years, every receipt that proved my absolute financial independence. I was building my case, brick by brick. Fortress, Elena, was about to be put to the test and, for the first time in my life, I was not going to allow a single crack in my walls. The next morning, I met with Claire at a coffee shop near her office. I brought a folder with all the documents I had gathered. She reviewed it with an efficiency that calmed me. "Perfect," she said, pointing to a paragraph in the condominium bylaws. "Here it is. Any guest or visitor whose stay exceeds 15 consecutive days must be formally registered with the administration through a simple loan for use agreement, signed by the title-holding condominium owner and the guest, and must be approved by the surveillance committee." She smiled. "This is our nuclear weapon." The strategy was simple and brilliant. I needed a legal guest to occupy my apartment, someone with a signed and registered contract that would make it impossible for my family to move Sophia in. The occupant had to be someone real, with a genuine need, so they could not accuse me of fraud. "Who are you thinking of?" Claire asked. My mind worked quickly, ruling out options. Then, a clear image came to me. Matthew, a colleague from the firm, a computer engineer who had mentioned in a meeting that his building would be undergoing major renovations for the next 3 weeks, and he was looking for a temporary place. Matthew was the antithesis of my family's chaos. He was calm, methodical, respectful, and almost pathologically tidy. He was perfect. That same afternoon, I called him. I was direct and professional. Matthew, I know you are looking for a temporary place. I have a proposal for you. I offer you my apartment at no cost for the next 3 weeks. In return, I paused. I need you to be the guardian of my peace. I explained the situation in the most neutral way I could, omitting the sordid details and presenting it as a complicated family matter. My family might show up on Saturday with the intention of installing my sister. Your only mission is to not let them in, show them the loan for use agreement that we would sign, and give no further explanations. And if it is not too much trouble and you feel comfortable, I added, remembering Claire's advice, an audio recording of any interaction would be of immense help to my lawyer. Matthew was silent for a moment. I thought he would tell me I was crazy, but then he answered in his usual calm voice. Elena, you are saving me from having to move into a very expensive hotel. Consider your peace guarded. Count on me. I felt a wave of relief so great that my voice almost broke. That night, Matthew came to my apartment. Claire had drafted a simple loan for use agreement, but one that was legally ironclad. We signed it. The next morning, we presented the contract to the building's administration. The administrator stamped and filed it. I gave a copy to Mr. Peterson, the head concierge, an elderly and kind man who had seen me arrive carrying blueprints late at night for years. I briefly explained that I would have a legal guest for a few weeks. He just nodded with an understanding look that told me he did not need more details. On Friday afternoon, my plan entered its final phase. I changed the lock to a high-security digital one and gave Matthew his own access code. I installed a small security camera, one of those that connect to your phone, pointing directly at the entrance door. I packed a suitcase with clothes, my laptop, and my most important documents. I stored my jewelry and valuables in a safe deposit box at the bank. I received a message from my mother. Do not forget that your sister's movers are arriving tomorrow at 10 in the morning. I hope you already have the room ready. I did not reply. Instead, I got into my car and started driving west. My destination, Napa Valley in California, a place where nobody knew me, where the wine and the desert landscape would help me silence the noise in my head. Before turning off my family's notifications, I sent one last message to Matthew. The stage is yours. Thank you and stand firm. The architect had designed the fortress. Now all that remained was to see if the walls would withstand the siege. On Saturday morning, I woke up in a room at a boutique hotel overlooking the vineyards. The air was fresh and smelled of earth and lavender. For the first time in days, I felt a hint of peace. I made a coffee and sat on the balcony with my phone in my hand. At 10:05 in the morning, the first notification from the security camera arrived, movement detected at the front door. I took a deep breath and opened the application. The show had begun. The image was sharp. A moving truck from one of the most expensive companies in the city was parked outside my building. 2 men in impeccable uniforms were starting to unload boxes and then they appeared. My father, Richard, walked in front with the arrogance of a general about to take a city. My mother, Laura, at his side with a triumphant smile. Behind them, my sister, Sophia, wearing enormous sunglasses that failed to hide her martyred air. And to complete the picture, my Aunt Carmen, my mother's sister, and the official family gossip came with them, no doubt to supervise the victory and report it to the rest of the clan. They arrived at my door and my father rang the bell with a series of sharp, impatient knocks. They waited. He rang again, this time harder. Then, the door opened. Matthew appeared in the doorway. He was wearing a white t-shirt and jeans. He looked calm, almost sleepy. He leaned against the doorframe, blocking the way. "Good morning," he said in a polite voice. "How can I help you?" My father did not even look at him. He tried to pass as if Matthew were invisible. "I am the owner of this family. We are here to move my daughter in." Matthew did not move an inch. He extended an arm, stopping him. "With all due respect, sir, but I believe there is a mistake. I am the legal resident of this apartment." My father's face went from arrogance to confusion and from there to fury. "Who the hell are you?" "My name is Matthew Rogers," he said calmly, "and I have a valid loan for use agreement, registered with the administration. Here it is." He took a folded copy from his pocket and held it out to him. It was then that my mother intervened. Her voice was a high-pitched shriek. "This is ridiculous. This is our daughter's apartment. Who do you think you are to forbid us entry?" My Aunt Carmen, seeing the drama unfold, took out her phone and started recording with a malicious smile. "So there is evidence of this rudeness. What a disgrace. While the verbal chaos escalated, I saw on the screen how Matthew, with impressive discretion, activated something on his own phone. He was recording the audio, just as I had asked him to. Right at that moment, like a guardian angel in uniform, Mr. Peterson, the concierge, appeared. He had been alerted by the noise in the hallway. "Mr. and Mrs. Hammond, good morning," he said with a professional calm that contrasted violently with my mother's shouts. "Is there a problem? This man will not let us into my daughter's apartment," my father exclaimed, pointing at Matthew. Mr. Peterson looked at Matthew, then at my father. "Sir, with all due respect, the young man Matthew has a legally registered contract with the administration as of yesterday. He is the official resident for the next 3 weeks. I am going to ask you in the most courteous way possible to not disturb the neighbors and to resolve any personal matters through the proper channels, not in the common areas of the building." The intervention of Mr. Peterson, a symbol of impartial authority and of rules they could not break, was the finishing blow. My father's face was a poem of contained fury and public humiliation. My mother was left speechless. Sophia looked like she wanted the earth to swallow her whole. The moving men looked at them with a mixture of pity and amusement. Defeated, they turned around and left. My Aunt Carmen put her phone away, although her satisfied smile told me that video was already on its way to the entire family circle. Minutes later, my phone vibrated. It was a message from Matthew. Attached was an audio file and a simple text: "Mission accomplished." I saved the video from the camera and the audio from Matthew in a secure folder in the cloud. The first battle was won, but I knew in my soul that the war was just beginning. The next 48 hours, my phone became a digital battlefield. 6 missed calls from my father, 8 from my mother. A torrent of text messages ranging from fury to pleading. "I cannot believe the public humiliation you subjected us to. You are a disgrace to me," said my fathers. "Your father is furious. You have a heart of stone, Elena. How could you do this to us, after everything we have done for you?" my mothers lamented. Aunt Carmen's video, of course, was already the talk of the family chat. Distant cousins who had not spoken to me in years suddenly wrote to tell me how disappointed they were in my selfish attitude. But the offensive did not stop there. My Aunt Carmen, in her role as general of the gossip division, spread a new, much more venomous rumor. Of course, she kicked out her own family to move in her lover. How shameless. Suddenly, my defense of my personal space had turned into a cheap soap opera about infidelity. Meanwhile, Sophia was orchestrating her own campaign on Instagram. She posted a black and white photo with swollen eyes and a dramatic caption: "Sometimes the ones who should protect you are the ones who hurt you the most. Grateful for the few friends who are truly family." The supportive comments were not long in coming, all condemning the heartless sister. I ignored everything. I put the phone on airplane mode and focused on the landscape, on the wine, on breathing. But I was not inactive. I had forwarded the screenshots of the messages, the video, and the new rumor to Claire. She called me that same afternoon. "They are using the entire arsenal from the manipulator's handbook," she said in her calm voice. "But while they play dirty, we play smart, and I have news." She paused. "Confirmed, Elena. The firm I work for is handling the case of Sophia's ex-fiancé. Not only did she clone his cards, she emptied an investment account. The fraud amounts to almost $28,000. That is why he dumped her. It was not a breakup, it was an expulsion for being a delinquent." I felt an icy chill. The little compassion I had left for my sister evaporated. "But that is not all," Claire continued. "Your instinct was right. There is something strange about your father's finances and Jason's businesses. I am investigating a very large transfer from one of your dad's companies to a shell account that seems to be linked to your brother. Give me a little more time." "Do you have the green light?" I said. My voice was hard as steel. "Use whatever you have to. And, Claire, forward the audio file I sent you to my parents and Aunt Carmen. Let them listen to their own spectacle." "At your command, General," Claire replied. I knew that sending them the audio would be like throwing gasoline on the fire, but I no longer cared. I was not trying to calm them down. I was demonstrating that I had weapons too, and mine were made of truth. That night I sat with a glass of wine, looking at the stars in the clear desert sky. The rage had been replaced by absolute clarity. This was no longer about an extra room. It was about dismantling a toxic and corrupt family system that had fed on my silence for too long. I was dealing with a cover-up, with lies, with a sense of entitlement that went beyond irrational. The architect in me knew that sometimes, to build something new and solid, you first have to demolish the old, rotten structure down to its foundations. And I had the dynamite in my hands. 2 days after the digital bombardment, I received an email from my father. The subject was urgent family meeting. The tone was not a request, but a command. "I expect you tomorrow at 7 in the evening at my office in the corporate building. It is imperative that you attend." I consulted with Claire. "Go," she told me. But do not go alone and bring your own agenda. I replied to my father's email with a simple line. I will be there. I will be accompanied by my legal counsel, Claire Davis. I knew that would infuriate him, but it was a statement of intent. This was no longer a family argument, it was a negotiation. However, my father had one last trick up his sleeve. A few hours before the meeting, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered. It was the director of a major real estate consortium, with which I was about to close the biggest project of my career. Elena, what a shame, the man said with an uncomfortable voice. I'm calling to inform you that we have decided to put the project on hold. Certain, worrying rumors have reached our ears about your, let us say, your reliability and your family situation. We do not like to get involved in personal problems. I hung up the phone and felt the floor open up beneath my feet. I understood instantly. My father, in an act of supreme cowardice and power, was trying to destroy me professionally. He was using his connections to sabotage my career. The stakes had just been raised to a level I never imagined. I arrived at the boardroom of his office with Claire by my side. The place was designed to intimidate. Dark wood, leather armchairs, a panoramic view of the city that screamed power. My parents and Sophia were already there. Richard had an expression of glacial fury. Laura, that of a tragic victim. Sophia did not dare to look me in the eye. My father did not waste time on greetings. Thank you for coming, although you have decided to bring strangers into our affairs. I hope we can resolve this. Your behavior has been unacceptable, shameful, and... He was interrupted by my mother, who put a hand to her chest and let out a moan. Oh, Richard, it hurts. I feel a tightness in my chest. This child is killing me. It was such a crude performance that it was almost comical. Claire did not even flinch. Do you need me to call an ambulance, Mrs. Hammond? She asked in a voice so cold it could cut glass. Or, if this is an act to generate pity, I suggest you save it. We are not here for that. My mother glared at her and fell silent, although she kept her hand on her chest. My father, furious at the interruption, resumed the attack. Since you like handling things with contracts and legalities so much, he said with contempt and slid a stack of papers across the enormous mahogany table. Here you have a detailed invoice for your upbringing, your education, your food, your clothes, for every dime we invested in you for 28 years. Consider that you owe us this and much more. Helping your sister is just a small down payment. I looked at the invoice. It was an absurd document, a monument to his own arrogance. But instead of getting angry, I felt a strange calm, the calm of someone who knows they hold the winning card. With a slow movement, I took my own folder from my portfolio and placed it gently next to his invoice. Speaking of debts, Dad, I said, and my voice sounded clear and firm in the silence of the office. I opened the folder. Here I have some slightly more real documents. They are bank records, specifically of a $110,000 transfer from one of your companies to a shell account in the Cayman Islands. An account that, coincidentally, is in Jason's name. My father's face lost all its color. A debt you forgave him after he embezzled from your own company to finance his latest cryptocurrency venture, I continued, my voice cutting through the air. This debt is real. It is documented. Your invoice is an insult. And as for the client, I just lost this afternoon in the real world that is called defamation and professional sabotage, and unlike you, I do have proof. We have witnesses to your behavior on my property. We have recordings of your threats, and now I have this. I pointed his invoice, then to mine. Checkmate. The silence that fell over the boardroom was heavier than the marble slab of the table. My father's expression of smugness had vanished, replaced by a mask of disbelief and panic. His power, that aura of absolute control that had always surrounded him, deflated like a punctured balloon. For the first time in my life, I saw him vulnerable, exposed. He did not know what to say. His arsenal of intimidation and authority had been exhausted. My mother looked from the papers on the table to my father's pale face, her own victim act forgotten. The revelation of the embezzlement by Jason, the prodigal son, the untouchable one, had left her without a script. It was in the midst of that silent chaos that Sophia finally broke. It was not an explosion, but a slow collapse, like a building giving way under its own weight. Tears began to roll down her cheeks, silent and genuine tears. It is true, she whispered, and her voice was barely a thread. We all turned to look at her. It is all true. She looked up, but not at me, but at my parents. I stole from my fiancé. He did not leave me. He threw me out like a dog when he discovered the fraud. And the thing with Jason, I knew about it. We all knew, and we kept quiet. Her voice began to gain strength, a strength born of desperation. I am tired of this. I am tired of being useless, and it is your fault. She pointed at my parents. You never taught me to fend for myself. Every time I made a mistake, You ran to fix it with money. Every time I failed, you told me I was too sensitive for this world. You turned me into a hollow and lying porcelain doll. Her confession was not a weapon to save me, as I might have hoped in an earlier version of my life. It was a surrender. It was the sound of her own chains breaking. The room fell into an even deeper silence. The truth, raw and unadorned, had finally taken up all the space. I stood up, and the movement seemed to pull them all out of their trance. Claire stood up beside me. There was not a hint of triumph on my face, only a deep and absolute exhaustion, but also a new strength, a spine forged in the fire of that last week. I never wanted this war, I said, my voice resonating with a calm I did not know I possessed. I only wanted my space. I only wanted my life to be respected, for my achievements to be worth something, for my nose to be heard. You have mistaken my independence for a personal offense. You have mistaken my boundaries for a betrayal. That is your problem. I paused, looking at the three of them, broken and exposed. It is no longer mine. I walked towards the door with Claire following closely behind.